this topic that we're going to talk about today is very timely because this is the time when some of us, if you are an employee, a lot of employees are being pushed to join work in person. And a lot of us have started thinking about whether what we do for a living is what we want to always do, right? This is a really nice time to consider financial freedom as your way out of the corporate grind. This is a really good time to define your real estate investing strategy. And what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about flipping versus the BRRRR strategy, which is what we specialize in. We're going to talk about why we never flipped a property, even though we could. And we're approaching 100 rentals right now, and we absolutely love it. Both of us quit our six-figure jobs, and we're full-time in real estate right now. And there's a reason we were able to do it in the last 5 years, right? Because the strategy means so much. If your financial freedom, if that's your destination, if that's where you want to go, then defining that strategy and deciding that path forward, that's going to be the journey you want to take to reach that destination. So what we are going to talk about today is super important, and make sure you take notes. If you don't have coffee, go get a cup of coffee, get a stretch. This is the time. You're taking this time for yourself. Enjoy this time. So let's get started.
Yeah, let's do it. As you join, please put in the chat your name and where you're joining from. We're excited to have you guys here today. Dalsa Garcia from Arizona, welcome. Lisa's from Canada, welcome, Lisa. Fantastic.
We have Tori joining us.
Yeah, let us know in the chat where you guys are joining from, guys. We're super excited. It's a really exciting topic because it's something that we get asked about all the time.
Karen is joining us from North Dakota. Hello. Welcome. So again, if you just joined us, tell us who you are and where you're from. Marlena from San Francisco. Sarah from New York. Amika from Philadelphia.
Welcome, guys. Super excited to have you guys here. We're just going to get started in a few seconds. We'll just let some more people join. We had like over 100 some people register, so we just want to give people some time to join. Jagriti from PA, welcome.
Hello.
Lenitra from Detroit, welcome.
Tori from Mississippi. And Teresa is joining us.
Welcome, everyone.
While you're joining, tell us your level of experience in real estate. Tell us how many properties you own right now.
Two, Isabella says 2 properties.
2.
Yeah, it's great for us to get a sense of how many properties you have. Lenitra says 1, Kelsey says 1, Tamika is just starting out. Fantastic. Tori is just starting out.
Great.
Good stuff. And Jagriti says 1, just closed on 2. Karen has 2. Fantastic.
We have 3 properties, but we are a passive investor and we want to get active. Yes.
Yes, exactly. And this is, by the way, what we do. And even this specific topic is not just whether you have 0, 1, or 5. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter how many properties you have. You can always learn how to scale it. As long as you know what your strategy is, right? So that's why today's discussion is so important. Sean says 1 property.
Welcome.
Great.
Yes.
Welcome.
All right. Let's get started.
And guys, as Palak said, it's super important to have your strategy right. And one of the reasons we were able to scale so quickly is because we picked one strategy that we really, really liked. And then we doubled down on it, and we didn't get distracted by all these other strategies, right? Mm-hmm. So that's one of the keys, and that's why you want to have a strategy that aligns with your vision, and you want to stick to that strategy.
Yeah, I think that's really important. What you said is, just pick one strategy and stick to it, and that is the reason we were able to grow so fast. I love that.
So let's dig into it. Flip versus BRRRR. So first of all, just to give you a quick, if you just heard of us or if you don't know enough about us, we'll just give you a quick intro. So we, Palak and I own Open Spaces Capital. And in the last 4 years, we've actually built, now the number is 8 million because we acquired now the $2 million worth of real estate in the last few months. So in 4 years, we've grown an $8 million portfolio. Palak was featured on the Bigger Pockets episode 368. And we have, what we did, guys, was all our lives, people told us, that 9 to 5 is the only way, right? Like that's what we were told. Like, yeah, you got to go get a job and that's how you make money and grow wealth. And we did that for 15 years and we didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? Even though we were both doing really well in our jobs, we're like, wait, we would be working till we were 50 or 60 and we would still not be financially where we needed to be. And so what we did was we used a lot of the experience that we had in corporate, and Palak was an engineer, and we used that to build a real estate portfolio, right? We used all the strategies and the systems and the processes that we have learned in corporate and applied that to real estate.
And our backgrounds in corporate fit really nicely with our transition into real estate investing. And we never wanted to build this business like mom and pop investors. We really wanted to build it like a business. And him being from strategy and finance, and me being from engineering and project management, and both of us having been involved in systems and processes at our jobs, combining those, we have a combined 30 plus years experience in all these areas, combining them and really growing our real estate portfolio like a business. That is one of the things that is different about how we do what we do and how we teach what we teach.
Yeah.
We're really passionate about empowering people in corporate and busy 9 to 5 jobs to achieve financial freedom through real estate investing. And as I was mentioning before, a lot of us tasted what it feels like to be able to be on your own schedule and work from home. And then now that the companies are calling people back, everybody's having this moment of panic, like, hey, am I going to have to go back to work and go in that grind again? This is a really good place to consider real estate investing as your way to financial freedom. 5 years is something that can get you to be financially free. Both of us were making 6-figure jobs. In 5 years, we were both able to quit our jobs and be in real estate full time.
Yeah, and just to the quick story comes to mind. So when I was in corporate, we had 2 kids back to back, right? So we had our daughter, and when she was around 20 months, we had our son. And we were both working full time at that time in our 9 to 5 jobs, right? And I was given a couple of weeks off when my son was born, and I took a week off, and then I was told by my boss, no, you got to come back because we're too busy. And so I literally took a week, only 1 week to spend with my newborn, and I was like, this is not good. Like, this is not what I worked so hard. And even though I was doing well at work, I was like, I don't want to live my life based on when somebody else tells me how much time I should be spending with my kids. So that was and Palak had her own sort of moment where she did the same thing.
You all probably know about my moment, right? You guys know I've talked about this on the Bigger Pockets episode 368, and I've talked about it a lot too, because I think that somebody needs to come out and say this, right? Yeah. It is so hard. As I was making 6 figures, I was on a great track for the corporate ladder, and I still felt resentful when I had my kids, and then I had to go back to work and pumping during conference calls and like covering your office windows with newspapers. And it's just ridiculous what mothers have to go through because corporate America doesn't understand what it's like to be a parent and want to build a career, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be either or. And when you work for yourself and when you're in real estate investing, you can make your own hours and you can really still continue to grow. If you're someone like me who wants to make an impact and who wants to explore their higher potential, you can still continue to grow. And this strategy that we implement allowed us to do that,
yeah.
Right? So,
totally. And guys, I would love to know, like, if any of you here today, is your ultimate goal to quit your job, to quit the 9 to 5? If so, give me a yes. Or if your goal is to create wealth,
Yeah,
type wealth? Would love to
tell us
kind of
in
hear.
comments, tell us in the chat, tell us what's your ultimate goal. Is it financial freedom, building wealth, passive income, all of the above? Or is it maybe it's to just, have a few properties every year on the side, and that's totally fine. We're all different. We all have different goals. And we found that specifically this strategy, but real estate investing has been amazing for that.
Karen says all of the above. Tamika, all of the above. Yeah.
Create generational wealth.
Yes. Yes. And, we were first generation immigrants. And for us, it was important that our kids don't go through the same things that we did, right?
My ultimate goal is to create wealth and free up my time to spend with my son. Yes, Tori, you and me are on the same page about that. That is one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to quit my job. Lisa says, all of the above. Our dream is to be location independent in 4 years and be able to move to South America. Love that.
That sounds like a good plan. Maybe we should move to South America too. I like that.
Marlena says, all of the above. Sean says, I would like to enjoy financial freedom while creating generational wealth.
Fantastic.
Jack says, yes.
Thank you guys for sharing. That really helps us appreciate that. Fantastic. So let's get started. And as we talked about, we featured on different publications. So you can always.
I've been featured on Bigger Pockets, Business Insider. I was on the Real Estate Investor show a few times. Also some other publications that you see here. We've been published, and we've really been talking about this mostly because we really think that this is something everybody needs to talk about, how difficult and stressful corporate life is, and building wealth is actually much easier than that.
Yeah. And, and this is down to the question that we get all the time, right? And which we kind of took almost a year or two to figure out what we really wanted. And so the question is, should I flip houses or should I BRRRR them, right? This is the age-old question. And just to take a step back, and for those of you who may not know what BRRRR is, let's just kind of go over what the difference is between a flip and a BRRRR, right? So in a flip, you would buy a distressed property, you would rehab it, make it, look really, really nice, with the goal of ultimately selling it, right? So your goal would be in a flip to just make money by forcing the appreciation and selling the property. And as opposed to a BRRRR strategy, where you would basically, you start off the same way, right? So you buy a distressed property and you rehab it. But instead of selling it, you rent it out, you refinance the property and pull most of your cash out, and sometimes all of your cash out. And then you repeat the same process, right? So because you're using the same capital, do it over and over again. That's what BRRRR is, the repeat part. So that's the difference. So in a flip, you would buy it, rehab it, and sell it. In a BRRRR strategy, you buy it, you rehab it, you rent it out, and then refinance to pull your cash out. So we've grappled with this question a lot, especially when we started out. We're like, wait, should we flip? Because you can make so much more money when you flip, right? Like, it's like, oh, you can make 20, 30 grand when you flip a house. And then that could replace our income and things like that.
And all these shows, right? Like HGTV and what's that? Chip and Joanna? What's the show called? Drop it in the chat, whatever that show is. It's so cool. I love watching these things. It's all about really renovating and decorating properties. And although it can be a creative outlet, it's not a wealth building play, right? And the BRRRR strategy may not be as sexy as any of those things, but it's absolutely incredible on how lucrative it is, especially the way we supercharge it.
Yeah. And by the way, like every property that we BRRRR, we could also flip. But we choose not to, right? And these are 3 reasons, if you're going to go over today, as to why we always choose to BRRRR and not flip.
And we're going to do numbers, and we're going to do an apples to apples comparison, numbers between flip and BRRRR. So stick around. And if at the end, we would love to know if you decide that flip is the right option for you, we'd love to know that.
Yeah.
All right.
So starting with reason number 1 as to why we would always BRRRR rather than flip. So this is the Golden Goose principle, right? And we all know about the Golden Goose. So how does that apply to real estate? right? And to flip versus BRRRR. So let's talk numbers, because this I think explaining it through numbers just will solidify it. And these are real numbers that we're talking about. So it'll just make a lot more. This is pure facts, right? This is not my opinion or anybody else's opinion. This is literally how a numbers would work for a flip versus BRRRR.
So there's a question in the chat that I'm going to answer real quick. Joom is asking, what does the last R or repeat after refinance mean? Repeat the same property? Could you please give an example? So yes, that's a great question.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go
ahead. I was just going to say, like, maybe you could answer it as we talk about the example, but what the example?
Let's do that.
Okay. So
good idea.
I'm going to explain that in a minute, but let me kind of set the stage for what the numbers are for flip versus BRRRR, right? So if you're doing a flip, say you buy a distressed property for 75,000, right? And the rehab for it is 25,000. Other costs are around 10,000. So your total investment, the other costs are very important because a lot of people don't take this into account. Those could be holding costs, things like that. But for simplicity, we're just going to call them other costs here. And your total investment is 110,000, right? Now,
exact same property.
Yes.
Right. And whether you flip or you BRRRR, all of this stays the same.
Exactly.
You're going to have acquisition costs, you're going to have renovation costs, you're going to have your soft costs, which are your other costs. We've bunched them into this 10K right now.
And so you'll see the total investment so far for a flip versus BRRRR is the same, right? It's 110,000, which is why up to this point, everything is the same. And because you force the appreciation, right, in both these properties, whether you flip it or BRRRR it, the ARV is now 160,000 for both, right? So that's the new ARV. So if you go to sell in the market, that's what you would get. And
I want to make sure that everybody who's here understands what ARV is. So this is the magic of renovating properties. When I say yourself, I don't mean DIY. We are not about the DIY. But when you take on the job of finding a distressed property and renovating it, you force it to appreciate. ARV is the after repair value. And there's a difference between what the property is worth when you're done versus what you actually spent on it, right? 110 versus 160.
And you just built that, you just forced that appreciation, right? So that's the amazing part about rehabbing a property. So now the ARV is 160,000, which means that you've just created an equity of $50,000, right? So now what does that mean for a flip? So for a flip, you would go out and sell that property for 160,000, which means you made a profit of $50,000. However, in a flip, you'd have to pay taxes of at least 35%, so 30%, sometimes it's 35%, right? Depending on what your tax bracket is, sometimes it could be more. Now you just paid taxes, and now after deducting the 15,000, you're left with $35,000.
This is the number we're talking about.
In a flip, right? So you sold it, you got taxed on it, and you're with $35,000, and that's all the money that house is going to make you ever, because you're done with that house, you've sold it. Now, what happens in a BRRRR is very interesting, right? So your ARV is 160,000. Your profit now is, or your equity, so to speak, in this case, because we're not selling it, so it's 50,000.
So by equity, if you don't know what equity means, that is the money that you have in the house, right?
Yeah.
That's how you can understand what it means.
Yeah.
It means that the house is worth more than what you owe, and that difference is the equity that you have in the house. So if you were to sell it, you could have that money.
Exactly. So that's the equity in the BRRRR property that you have right now. Let's talk about what happens here. So you already made that equity. So what you would do in this case is you would, in the BRRRR instance, you would, instead of selling it, you would go to a bank and say, I want to refinance my property. And so give me a 75% or 80% loan to value against this, right? So the bank would say, okay, since your property is worth 160, we're willing to give you, X amount back, and you'll be able to pull majority of the 50,000 cash out of the property.
110, you'll be able to pull the 110.
Right. That's right. And that's basically all of your money that you'd put into it, right? So the bank will say, okay, here's 110,000, and you have basically that cash now in your hands. to do another project. That's where the last R comes from, the repeat. That was a question in the chat. Like, what does repeat mean? Now what you can do is you can take the 110,000, you already create an asset. Now you take the same $110,000 and then do another project and another one and another one. So that's the repeat part of that.
So you're basically recycling the same money that you did your first project with, and that's where the last R in the horse strategy comes from.
So now let's talk about the Golden Goose, right? In a flip, you would have had the 35,000 and that's it. You just kill the goose. Whereas in BRRRR, because you hold on to it for a period of time, here's what happens. Over a period of 10 years, and we're only saying 10 years, you could hold on to it for 20 or 30, but let's just say in 10 years, your cash flow would be around $36,000, right? After you pay off the mortgage and expenses every month, you'll be left with,
if you make about 300 a month, that comes out to
36,000
a year.
in 10.
I was doing it in my head as you were
36,000 in 10
we
years.
put this together a while ago. We were like, what did we use again?
Right, right. And the appreciation, if you use like a 3% appreciation over the period of 10 years, that's $55,000, and you just made an appreciation.
And that's pretty conservative, right? 3% appreciation is a very conservative number that we're using here. So, I mean, can you imagine appreciation alone is $55,000 in 10 years? And that's only assuming that it goes up by 3% every year.
Yeah. And what a big part that people sometimes don't use for the calculations is the principal pay down, right? So because you're getting rent every month, you're also paying down the principal loan that you have on the property, which amounts to another $50,000 over a period of 10 years. So now you just made $191,000 from one property, from the same property that you're going to kill and just get $35,000. Now, by keeping it for 10 years, you just made $190,000. And if you keep it for another 10 years, it'll double, right? That's why for us, it's a no-brainer. Every time we're like, should we sell this and make a quick 35? No, why would we? Because we're going to make 190 over a period of 10 years. And the best part about BRRRR is that you can use that same capital that you used to buy the first one to do your second and your third and your fourth. So it's a great way to basically eliminate the capital constraint that people would have.
And so over the course of the 10 years, you're not just going to use that money and try to do, backtracking a bit. Over the course of the next 10 years, what you're going to do is you're going to take that money and you're going to invest it in more and more and more properties. We're not even taking that into account here, right? We're saying that $191,000 is if you just did that one deal. You're not going to stop there. You're going to use the repeat philosophy, right, that we just talked about, and you're going to repeat it again and again. So it's not 191,000, it's much more.
Yeah, totally. And June is asking, how long do you recommend holding the property?
How long? Can you read it out loud?
So the question is, how long do you recommend holding the property? Do you sell it every 10 years or longer? We would never, we don't ever want to sell our properties. We want to pass them on to our kids. So when we die at some point, when we're 70 or 80, or hopefully much later than that, we can pass these on to our children.
It depends on all the drinking.
Yeah, that's true. But we want to pass that on to the kids, and they will own it. Right. And imagine, like, if it can do this in 10 years, we can get 190,000. Think about what it can do in 20 or 30 or 40 years. Right. That's the power of buy and hold real estate. When I first started in real estate, somebody told me, a very wise man told me, the way you get rich in real estate is not by peddling real estate. It's not by buying and selling real estate. It's by buying and holding on to real estate. That's where the true wealth generation happens. When people do flips, they're generating income. They're not generating wealth. Wealth accumulation only happens when you hold on to something for a long period of time. And you can clearly see the numbers are there, right?
And, when you flip, or when you're involved in wholesaling or in other ways, when it comes to real estate investing, in my mind, that's not considered investing, because you've not invested that money long term to see the true results, right? That is running a business that's making an income, and that is necessary for some people. It has a place. but that's not the same thing as building wealth. And it's so important to understand the difference, because we didn't know this, right? Nobody explained this to us when we first got started.
Yeah. And June was asking, should we factor in the advantage of depreciation for holding strategy? Great question. And in fact, that's one of the things we're going to come to. So hold that thought, June, because I'm going to elaborate on that in a second. But one other thing to point out, that when you flip, you just paid 30% tax on the 50,000 that you pulled out, right? Whereas when you BRRRR and you pull the cash out of refinance, $110,000 that you're going to get, the bank is going to give you as a loan, you don't have to pay any taxes on it. So it's tax-free, right? Obviously, because it's a loan. Mm-hmm. So that is another huge benefit. But what you just mentioned, June, we're going to come to that as we talk about other tax advantages.
Mm-hmm. When you refinance, do you refi for 160 and give yourself that 50K profit, or only take it out for 110 to get the initial investment back and then rely on the rental cash flow to pay off that 110?
The latter, right? So you're basically pulling.
You cannot pull all the money out.
You can only pull up to 75 or 80%, Raj, right? So you can, which will be around 110.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to pull most, if not all, of the 110 out, and then you use it for the next one. And then you can see in the calculations, the way the property pays for itself is through cash flow, right? Not only cash flow, but also through appreciation over time, through the debt pay down and taxes, which June mentioned, which you're going to talk about in a bit. But yes.
Christine says, is this strategy still viable in today's market where the purchase prices are elevated and rental markets are unstable? So we're going to talk about this a little bit, about how this applies in today's market. So we're going to come to that. But one thing I will say is that the rental markets being unstable is something that landlords who do not know how to screen their tenants well say.
Yes.
If you know how to screen your tenants well, if you either work with a mentor or you can learn it by trial and error, if you truly understand how to screen your tenants well, and then you treat them well, when you mix those two things together, right? So we treat our landlording as a hospitality business. We treat our tenants like customers. We treat them really, really well, but we also screen them really well upfront. When you merge those two, we've collected 95% of our rents through COVID.
Yeah, and exactly right. And so, and to your second part of the question, prices are elevated, but so are the ARVs that you get in the back end, right? And which is one of the things that we're going to get to in one of the benefits of BRRRR. So I'm going to hold on to that. But these are amazing, amazing questions. What if you're in a market like Seattle, which has minimum cash flow? Neha is asking.
So one of the things that we teach in our program is how to identify the right market for your specific scenario and for your specific goals. This is why we only coach in small groups, because we want to make sure that we understand where you're coming from. We want to help you decide your strategy and what's right for you based on where you live and where you want to invest. So putting a blanket statement around yes, whether it works here and whether you should do this or that is, I think it's the bro gurus that are out there that are scamming people into buying their courses are saying stuff like that. But honestly, you have to figure out what's right for you in your situation, and that's how we teach it. All right, so let's go to the next slide. So this is a great example of a little single family deal that typically most of the people we work with, they'll pick up something like this. You purchase a property for around 75,000, renovate it for 45,000. And again, for the sake of simplicity, we have rounded the numbers because everything that ends in a 0 or a 5 is easier to talk about and calculate in our heads, right? And then also for the sake of simplicity, we've taken all of the soft costs and other expenses and we've bunched them in with either the acquisition or the renovation costs. So for a property like this, once you're done with renovating it, say the after repair value, the ARV is 180,000, and then your rent would be around 1,400 per month. your cash flow after you eliminate all the expenses is going to be around $400 a month, and you just created $50,000 in equity in that one deal, right? So most people who work with us, they pretty much make, a ton of money on their very first deal, and you're not even going to stop there, right? And this is an example of the potential. So this is a 10-unit deal. People who worked with us for about a year or so, they are looking into deals like this. This is actually a deal that we did. So we purchased this 10-unit deal for $375K. We renovated all 10 units for $275. The rent for all of the 10 units combined was $12K per month. And then after everything was said and done, the property appraised for $1 million. The cash flow, after all the expenses were taken out of the rent and the mortgage and everything, $3,500 a month. This is the cash flow that you can make for life on a deal like this. Yeah. And the equity created for a property like this is around $250K. You force that property to appreciate by $250K, right? This is basically more than my annual salary when I was working in corporate. And I worked on this deal for less than an hour a week.
Yeah.
Right. I would never have made this kind of money working an hour a week in my profession. I have a master's degree in mechanical engineering. I worked for 17 years on my degree. I would have never done that in, all the years, that 60 years of education and 17 years of working. 23 years would have never given me that for working an hour a week. So think about that, and think about the $3,500 per month in cash flow. That's for life.
And by the way, and this is again going back to the flip versus BRRRR. If we had sold this, it would have been the worst decision of our lives, because here's why. So we would have made $250K if we sold it, right? If we had just flipped it, which sounds like, oh, we made $250K. That's a pretty good number on one deal, but we held on to it. So this is a deal we did like 2 years back. Since then, the property is now valued at $1.2 million. So not only did we create the $250K in equity and the $3,500 a month in cash flow, we just recently refinanced it and refinanced it again.
Same property.
And we pulled out another $200,000. So we've just basically got another $200,000, which we would never have gotten.
The golden goose laid another egg.
Right.
You don't give that golden goose up.
And we've made for the last 2 years $3,500 a month, right?
And this $3,500,
which we would not have made if we had sold the property.
And it gets us so excited when we talk about this. This $3,500 per month, guys, is also tax-free.
Yes.
So if you're going to compare this to your salary, compare it to your take-home salary, right? After everything you deduct, what do you get? That's what you compare it to.
Yes.
Which brings us to reason number 2, which is tax advantages. Any questions that you guys have, drop them in the chat. We will come back to them at the end. So that brings us to reason number 2, tax advantages. And you touched on that a little bit. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So there's, other than, what we just talked about, which is, and let's talk about this slide again, the same deal that we talked about, right? So there's a couple of tax advantages that you get in a BRRRR that you never get in a flip. One is that in flip, as we said, you'd have to pay this 30% tax when you sell it. In BRRRR, you don't have to do that because you're refinancing and pull the cash out. When you pull the cash out, you don't have to pay taxes on it because it's a loan, but you're still getting cash in your hand, right? So that's number one. Number 2 is that this cash flow number right here, the 36,000 for 10 years in this specific deal, that is tax-free, because as June mentioned, that there is something called depreciation, which is an advantage that government gives you for owning rental property. It's for nothing else that you get pretty much tax-free, but you do get it if you own a rental, which is that you can claim depreciation against your against your profits every year, right? And so you would pay 0 taxes on the $36,000 that you make because of depreciation.
And again, we're not accountants. So let's just
Yeah,
put that
don't-
disclaimer out there. We're
Yes.
not accountants, work it out with your accountant, but usually depreciation offsets any profit you make. So your cash flow is tax-free, your equity that you forced is tax-free, your principal payment is tax-free, your appreciation is tax-free. As long as you hold the property, you don't get taxed on any of that.
Right.
So absolutely brilliant. And reason number 3 is that flips are higher risk. And I'm gonna show you what we mean by that by drawing this market cycle chart. Let's think about it from the perspective of property values versus time, right? So say this axis is property values, and then here we're looking at time, right? Say we're here, and we know that historically real estate prices continue to go up, right? So real estate prices continue to go up, but this graph is an oversimplified version. In reality, the way it works is it goes like this, right? It's not going to be straight up going up. Sometimes there might be dips. Sometimes there might be dips in the market cycle. The reason long-term buy and hold investing is the safest option out there is because if you're going to flip that property, you don't want to be caught here, right? You don't want to be at a point where you purchase the property at the top of the little market cycle that you're a part of, you tried to flip it, and instead of it going up from there, it actually went down, right? You don't want to get stuck here trying to flip that property, because flip is a very short-term gain. What you want to do is you want to invest for long-term gains, so that whether you purchase a property here or you purchase the property here, and whether there are dips in the market cycle, you continue to go up if you look at it from the long-term perspective. And that's how I want you to start thinking about it. Everybody who talks about how they lost money in real estate, and they're all the people who are trying to make a quick buck and get out of it. As long as you're in it for the long haul, and as long as you're investing for long-term, these little changes are not going to impact you. Does it make sense? Drop it in the chat. Just say yes in the chat if what I'm saying here resonates with you, if it makes sense.
Yep. Tamika says yes. Lisa,
Perfect.
yes. Yep. Yep.
Brilliant. All right, let's do it.
That's great. Well, thank you guys. And that's the idea, right? Like, this is what we've known for so long. And we're like, wait, people need to know like why we never flip, because we could flip every single property that we do this with, that we rehab, but we never do. And so that's why this is why.
So in the chat, just let us know, guys, what's been the most helpful so far. Drop it in the chat. We'd love to know.
And I want to show you a practical example of what we just discussed, right? So this is how what Palak just mentioned about the market cycles, this is how it manifests itself. And we've had firsthand experience of this. So as I'm going through this, let me know if this makes sense.
And while we're talking about it, just let us know what was the most helpful so far. Keep talking to us in chat, because we love when you guys are interactive.
So this is a property. This actually happened to us. So these are real numbers. This is a property that Palak purchased in 2008, back in 2008, just before the market crash, right? So this is before the market went crazy and the housing market plummeted.
Right before the crash. Perfect time to buy, right?
So she bought it at 120,000, right? And this was a rental, right? So she bought it for 120, and right after the crash, within a few months, the market value went down to 85,000. So the market value dropped by $35,000 in a few months because of absolute worst time in history for real estate, right?
And I still remember we had just started dating, and we were like talking about moving in together. And every time it went down, I was like, I need to sell this. And, I wasn't living there anyway anymore. And it was a rental. And I was like, I need to sell this.
Before it goes even further down.
Yeah, before it's going down, I need to sell it. And he kept telling me, he's like, just hold on to it. Just hold on to it.
So here's what happened, right? So it went down by $35,000, but it was rented out. So throughout and we've held on to it for the last 12 years now, right? Every month we would make $250 in cash flow. So that's after we receive the rent, we would pay the mortgage and any expenses, and we were left with $250. That's the cash flow, that's the profit, right? Every month. So in the last 12 years, our cash flow has been $36,000, right? The appreciation. So now it's worth even more. But when we made the slide, the market value was up to 150,000. Now I think it's worth 160, 170. So we made another $30,000 just through appreciation because we held on to it for 12 years, even though we bought it at the worst point in history and the price had gone down by 35,000. It's now back up. It's back up by 30,000, right? And the debt pay down. So we had paid the loan, the mortgage got paid down by $40,000 in the last 12 months. So now if we were to sell it today, we would make a profit of $106,000, right? And that is after we suffered a loss of $35,000 within a few months because of the market crash. And this is the power of buy and hold investing, right? If we had sold that property, if you were doing a flip and you had sold it for 85,000, we would have made a huge loss, obviously. But instead, we would make a total of a profit of 106,000 after buying it at the worst possible time in real estate history. So that's the power. That's when we realized that why would you ever sell a property? Right. So hopefully this resonates with you guys. Give me a yes if it does, because this was sort of game changing for us. After we saw that firsthand happen to us, we're like, why would we flip?
Tori says refinancing the property after rehab is a totally new concept to me. The explanation was very helpful. Yes. So, one of the things that we learned as we started going through buy and hold investing is all of the wisdom that you get from parents and neighbors and coworkers and all doesn't apply. If you want to build a solid multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio, you need to understand commercial finance. You cannot operate the same way you've been operating up until the point where you decided to become a multi-million-dollar real estate investor. You really need to understand commercial finance. So when we talk about refinancing and all of that stuff, just keep in mind that there are no limits when you understand commercial finance. That's what we do.
Yeah. And so again, just to recap, and we're going to get to Q&A. So as you have questions, please type them in the chat. Would love to cover any questions that you guys have. But this is just the advantage of BRRRR, right? Like, look at that. Flip has like 1x, which is just forced equity. That's literally all you get in a flip. Versus BRRRR, you can take advantage of appreciation, of cash flow, of debt pay down, of amazing tax benefits that you'd get just for both buying and holding. And you can scale a lot more in BRRRR because now every time your cash flow is going up, your income is going up, and you can build your portfolio pretty quick.
So we're going to do Q&As soon. So just keep dropping any questions you have in the chat and we'll get to them very soon. Wanted to tell you about our program. We see some of our grads are here. Thank you for coming here to support us today. Also, somebody who just enrolled in the program is here. Braggy, I think that's how you say your name. Welcome. Good to kind of see you, and I'll see you on our next call, but welcome and glad to have you here. We're going to just quickly tell you about the program that we have. So we have this 90-day, 3-month program. This is where we teach you the BRRRR strategy, but not just the BRRRR strategy. The BRRRR is just a strategy, right? It's not about the strategy. It's how you execute it. So we teach you acquisition, construction, renting, but we teach you hard money and commercial finance. And that is one of the ways we supercharge it. We also teach you how to build this business and operate it like a CEO. This isn't a real estate investing program. it is a real estate investing program that is also a business program. So think about it as getting a bachelor's in the business of real estate. That's what our 90-day program is. Now we made the shift a little bit ago, where we are learning that people who stay with us longer, they actually get results that are incredible. They're exponential results. So now we're asking everyone to stay with us for 15 months, work with us for our next level program, our mastery and acceleration program. That's a 12-month program that starts the day you graduate from our 3-month program. In the 3-month program, you have everything you need to implement the BRRRR strategy, and our grads are doing it. In the 12-month program, the goal is to build your $1 million real estate portfolio. And then we take this strategy. This strategy that we teach is like the building block, the mother of all the strategies. And then we take it and we up level it in the next program. We teach you how to do $1 million deals without partners.
Similar to the deal that we talked about, right?
Yes.
We talked the numbers. Well.
We get into 100% financing strategies. We get into short-term rentals. And you get that live real-time mentoring that we wish we had when we first got started. So this is kind of like our program. The first one is very foundation, and you build the business from scratch. And 3 months to build a business is just insanely good. I mean, it took us a whole year.
And there's a lot that goes into it, right? In the first 3 months, you'll figure out where you need to invest, because it may be different for everyone, right? Where you're investing, which neighborhood, how do you pick which property to invest in? How do you figure out how you're going to do the rehab, right? What kind of rehab do you have to do, and how do you actually execute the rehab, especially if you're investing out of state? How do you do that? How do you then finance it? How do you fund the purchase price and the rehab? So those are all the things that you learn in the first 90 days.
And it's very action based. You work directly with us. You don't work with a random coach. You work directly with us. We have a pulse on how you're doing. We analyze the deals that you're looking at. That's why we only work in small groups, because we really care about our people. It's like family. So that's the program, the 4 pillars, and I'm just going to take a second and talk about it, and then we can get into, I think that's it, right?
And then we can, any questions, guys, in the meantime, please put in the chat. We'd love to answer your questions as
well. So we have our core content, which is our modules that we've graduated 300-400 people already. So it's been, these modules are constantly being improved. They're based on all the results we've got so far and what really works. There is a framework around everything. You ask me one question, I will tell you exactly how you can break it down and think about it step by step. All right, so there is a framework around everything. Implementation. So we have you have weekly calls in a small group setting. You get your questions answered. You meet other investors. You'll have accountability. So we help you form an accountability group, and connecting with other people who are trying to do the exact same thing that you are is just amazing. And then community. We have a private Facebook group that you will be a part of. Let me see what's next.
Yeah, I think that was it.
Yep.
Let's do questions.
Let's do questions.
Scroll up a bit.
Okay, so let's.
Yeah, guys, type your questions in the chat. We'd love to get to your questions as well.
Hey guys, if we didn't touch on your question before, can you do me a favor and just type it again? Because Zoom chat is jumping quite a bit as I'm trying to go through them. I'm going to start with, should we start with this one?
Yeah. Yeah, so Tori's saying refinancing the property is after rehab is totally new concept. That explanation was very helpful. Great, that's good to know. Yes, it's life-changing. The refinancing part is what makes it so scalable, right? You can use the same dollars to do another deal and another deal using the same dollars. Tamika says tax advantages info is helpful. Fantastic. Lisa says, I like your approach about investing for the long.
So read it slowly.
I'm just.
So we're in business fast. Together. No, we're in business together, but we're also married. So
I think fast and I talk fast, so I apologize if I'm rushing. Lisa says, yes, I like your approach about investing for the long term, really building it like a business.
Yes, 100%.
Absolutely.
In this example, 2008 property, is the cash flow for 12 years the profit or the actual monthly rent?
No, that's just the cash flow. So that's not the rent. So it's just cash flow, which was around 250, I forget 250 or 300 that we used for that example. That's the cash flow over 12 years.
Tori says, when starting out, did you all finance the properties with your personal credit, or did you create a business and use business credit? So there are three things that you want to consider, not just personal and business. So one, personal credit. Do not use your personal credit. We did do that because there was nobody there to tell us not to do it. Don't do that. We learned the hard way, and then
yes, but you want to tell them why?
Oh yeah, thank you. So yeah, so what we did was Bank of America offered me a personal line of credit, 0% APR for 16 months, 4% upfront. I was like, great, 50 grand, let's use that. We did that. When we went to refinance the property, the bank said, you have a revolving debt on your account for $50,000. We cannot lend to you.
Yeah.
So don't do that. Don't use your personal credit. Business credit is different. It's for a business and setting up a credit for that. But there is a third piece here. You can learn the ins and outs of commercial lending and asset-based lending, which means that the borrowed money, the collateral is the asset you're working on. That's what you want to do. You don't want to jeopardize your business. You don't want to jeopardize your personal credit. So that's what we teach.
And can I just add to that the commercial financing and the sophistication of financing that we use, that is one of the biggest reasons why we scaled so quickly. Because a lot of people in real estate, when we started, who had like 2 or 3 rentals, and they still have only 5 or 10 rentals. And the reason we're getting close to 100 is because we used commercial financing and we learned it really, really well. And that's what we teach. So that's, in fact, what we teach. The financing itself could be its own program because there's just so much that goes into the financing. And by the way, I come from a finance background. I worked in finance and strategy for 10 years.
He has 2 masters in that.
But it still took me like months to learn commercial financing. And we teach that to you pretty quickly because you wouldn't have to learn from scratch. You learn it from us, which is a lot easier.
Yes. And this is something you cannot DIY. This is something you have to learn from an expert. The commercial lenders don't even talk to brand new investors, right? Okay. Do you recommend using a property management company? It depends on what you want to do. It depends on how much time you have for your portfolio. We mostly coach people who are busy professionals. So we teach you all about investing in real estate and then managing the properties yourself, because I did that for years. But we also teach you how to find a good property management company if that's what you want. Especially if you're super busy, definitely. What are your thoughts about doing a BRRRR through 401k funds?
We've done that, Jag, and I think it's doable. The only thing is it's not very scalable, right? So because you can only use your funds once, like you can't get multiple loans on your 401k at the same time. Again, whenever you're thinking of building a portfolio, you need to think about how you're going to scale it, right? Don't think about just how do I do one deal, because then you're going to be stuck doing just one deal at a time. We do like 10 plus deals at the same time. Our students do, who even after working with us for a few months, they do 2 or 3 deals at the same time. And that's where you want to be, because that's how you scale fast. Yeah. So by the way, if you want to know more about our program, we're going to drop a link here. So if you want to apply, you can apply. There's an application form, and we are very selective about who we get into the program, partly because one, it's a small group program, and 2, we work with serious investors who are ready. So we ask when you fill out the application that you give as much detail as possible. And then I say this jokingly, but we make it kind of hard for people to actually get in, because that's the idea. Because once you're in, you will see that people who are in there are incredible, and it's a community that's really helps each other.
And we realize we're not for everyone. If you want to dabble in real estate, if you want to do like one deal here and there, if you're like, all right, maybe I love it, maybe I don't, not for you. This isn't the right program for you. If you want to build it as a business, if you're serious about it, then our program is right for you.
And I would say if you're serious, and if BRRRR is your strategy that you want to embrace, I will tell you that we're the best BRRRR coaches. Like, and I'm not saying it's because it's us. We've done this ourselves so many times, and we've helped so many people do it. We can do it in our sleep, and we know we can get you success. So if you're serious about real estate, and if BRRRR is your strategy, then come to us for sure. Fill out this form.
So and it's open spaces. I didn't want to type it because if I typed it in the chat would jump and I would lose all the questions that I wanted to look at, and I would have to scroll up. So I'm just sharing the screen. Go to openspaceswomen.com/book a call. And you are able to book a call here. There are just 4 questions here. When you click submit, there is a more detailed application form. Take your time and fill out the form, because we need to understand where you're coming from to make sure you're a good fit. Also, if you scroll down on this page, there are tons of testimonials and people we've coached, and all the information about that. Okay, the Zoom chat jumped anyway, so I'm going to drop the link here. Also, you don't have to fill out the form if you don't want to. All you have to do is DM me on Instagram, and somebody from my team will help you fill it out. So just DM and say, hey, I was on the BRRRR versus Flip Live. I want to fill out, I want to apply. And they can just talk it over with you. They might ask you a ton of questions. Just don't be offended. That's just our process. We just want to make sure that you're the one for us, and we're the one for you.
Yeah,
okay,
we
this
already
is
did that.
done. I'm going up in the chat. This is done.
Wait, I think you skipped a bit.
This one.
Yeah, there you go. The amounts you mentioned, examples for equity, isn't materialized until you sell the property
or refinance it.
Yeah, but you can refinance and pull the cash out, right? So that's one way of doing it. And then once you in say 5 years or 2 years or 3 years, whenever you're ready to refinance, you can pull more cash out, and then it becomes real. But the cash flow is real, right? So the cash flow is something that you're getting every month. And the debt pay down is also real, because you're paying debt down every month, right? And the cash out becomes real when you pull the cash out when you refinance.
I'm very interested in your mastery and acceleration program. Could I opt out the first course? So June, this is a good question. And the short answer is no. And the reason is because the first thing that you have to do when you come into our ecosystem and in our program is you're going to have to unlearn everything that you know about real estate. And I didn't come up with this, by the way, this brilliant concept. One of the people in our program, she had a lot of experience. And when she graduated, she came in, and when she graduated, I asked her, I said, do you have any advice for somebody else who comes into this program? She said, if you are experienced and you enter the program, you need to unlearn everything you come into real estate with, because what we do here is different. It's life-changing. It's going to be completely different than what you know. You need those first 3 months to it's like, what is it called? Like the cradle of of real estate investing. You need that before you can do all of these other things.
And by the way, we have tons of people in the program who have done 2, 3, 5 properties, who already own a few properties, and who maybe tried even flipping. We have people in the program who flipped a few times. We program people in the program who've done a couple of BRRRRs, but they don't know how to scale it. And for that, you need to learn the foundation of how you do everything, right? Because the way you build your team, the way you build the systems and processes, the kind of properties you look at is all going to be different potentially from the way you do it today.
I can guarantee you there's nothing like what we do out there. I don't guarantee a lot of things, but I can guarantee you that. Did COVID affect your reno pricing and timelines? So it did. It's come back to where it was before, by the way, but it did. What we teach in our program is we're very conservative, and we're going to teach you how to invest in real estate in a very conservative way. What we teach in our program, and I advise you to do the same thing, is always have 15% contingency in your construction budget. And because we had that the contingency, we were able to absorb some of the changes because of COVID within our construction budget.
Yeah.
Our people have been investing throughout the whole pandemic, and they've been achieving success throughout.
Yeah. Neha says, even after ARV and refi, the rent should, the cash flow should be positive. Absolutely. So what we teach you, the way we teach you in the program, that's why we said the foundation is important, because what we teach you in the foundation is how do you pick the kind of property, Neha, that'll allow you to do that. That'll still be positive cash flow after you refinance. So good question.
And the big thing is, what I notice a lot of people do is they kind of jump in and then they figure it out as they go along. You're going to know upfront the way we analyze deals. You're going to know before you even put in an offer whether it's going to cash flow at the end or not, because there's no point otherwise, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, 100%. Do we start investing within the first 3 months? Yes.
Yeah.
So the big thing is at the end of the 3 months, you will have your first property under contract. That is what we want you to do.
Yeah. And, or you'll start putting in offers, right?
Or start putting in offers at a minimum. Because
the market is hot. And so it may take you 2 or 3 offers before you get your first property. But that's the idea, is that in month 2, by the end of month 2, you're starting to put in offers. Right. And then hopefully you have a property. A lot of people even have a property before they graduate. A lot of people get a property under contract within a week or 2 of graduating from the portfolio program, from the first program.
Yeah. Some of the folks, one thing, we're very intense. Like we deeply care about the people we work with. So we're going to push you to do that. One thing I will say, life happens. And that's why when you work with us for 15 months, if life happens and if something happened in your life that doesn't allow you to make the progress that you want to make in the first 3 months, you will be with us for 15 months. We've had people that come into our board, the next program is called Boardroom. They come into it within the first month, they get like 3 deals under contract because that's how their progress was, right? So I would say when you're in the program, don't compare your journey to anybody else's. We are all different. And the beauty of working for yourself and investing in real estate is it can ebb and flow with your life. If there's a lot going in your life, lean into it.
Yeah.
And then come back to investing. And a lot of the people, I was on a call today, right before, I think Krisha joined today's call. Hi, Krisha, if you're here still. And I was telling them that, just a couple of them took the last 2 weeks off because maybe their kids were off or maybe somebody got sick and they took the last 2 weeks off of real estate, right? I was like, you know what? If there's a long weekend coming up, if you have a vacation day saved, take 4 hours out of that long weekend or take a vacation day. 4 hours in real estate, you can make so much impact on your business in that much time, right? So
Yes.
It's not linear. Everybody's journey is different and be okay with that.
Can BRRRR strategy be used for new construction properties? Not really. It's a flip at that point, right? Because we don't want to get into too much. But the thing with new construction is that if you build a new construction, especially now with the high construction costs, chances are it's not going to cash flow. You won't be able to rent it. You'll have to sell it. In which case, again, it goes back to what we talked about in this discussion is like, why would you ever flip? And so it's so much easier to just take an existing property, rehab it. It's also a lot faster.
Sean is saying, is there a specific amount of capital that someone should have access to start the course?
Great question.
Yeah, really good question. We should have mentioned that. So we ask that you have at a minimum $25,000 to invest in your portfolio. So good advice never comes free, but we really want to make sure that you're not taking major risks before you even have a little bit of savings, right? So whether it's savings, it can be in your 401k, it can be in a HELOC, it can be if you're a friend or a family member is willing to lend to you, they're going to get it back. But yeah, have access to about 25k.
And that's what separates us from a lot of the gurus that are out there who will tell you, just sign up for our program. I don't care how much cash you have. We're not like that. We make our program exclusive, and we want you to have some money when you come in so that you can implement in the program.
Yeah, we really want to be responsible about, how we're going to have you spend your money too, right? So we want to be very responsible. So under 25K, just wait till you have access to 25K before you apply, or before you even think about investing in real estate overall.
Yes.
I don't care what anybody else says. This is the more responsible way to get into investing. Otherwise, you're going to end up hating real estate otherwise.
People who end up in trouble and who go bankrupt are the ones who have zero money, and then they do it the wrong way and take risks, and we don't want you to do that. Lisa is asking, do you tend to hold your properties in a company or trust? Sounds like you don't hold them.
Don't ever hold anything in your personal name.
Yes,
because and we teach you that too about how. Yeah, go ahead. I keep interrupting. I get excited.
It's it's you don't want to hold them in your personal name, because it becomes harder for you to get loans then, because your debt to income, your global debt to income will go down, and that's what banks look at when they give you loans. And so if the loan is in your personal name, it's not a good thing. You want your properties to be under an LLC, and again, we teach you how to do that.
So there's 2 more questions.
Yeah, and Jag, you have to fill out the form because we want to make sure you're a good fit. So please fill out the form, and if we are a good fit, then we can hop on a call. Someone from our team will hop on a call with you, and we can discuss the options and give you more details about the program. Tamika is asking, I may have missed you when you answered this question. Do you mind answering again? Do you teach mortgage note investing? No. So mortgage note investing is a completely different strategy. And that's why, I always say, know what your strategy is going in. We're in real estate. And the way we kind of decided that BRRRR strategy was right for us is because we wanted to build assets over a period of time. We want tangible assets, not just notes. And so for us, it's always about how do we buy more assets, because that's given us the passive income that we want, and it's going to appreciate over time and create generational wealth for our kids, right? That's why we do this.
I want to just see if any of our grads are still here and or somebody who's in our program is still here and can unmute and just.
I think people left.
I think people left. Yeah.
That's fine. But guys, this is great. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully this is helpful.
We can all unmute and say goodbye. If you could turn on your video and just say hi to me, I'd love to see your faces, and then we can say goodbye. And if you're not following us on social media, make sure you do. Open Spaces Women. Hello, bye-bye. Neha, Nikki, Lisa. What else do I see? Tamika, Christine. Hello.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hello.
Thank you guys. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.